Our speaker tonight is Lilly. So she's the founder and executive director of Howard EcoWorks, and she's going to speak about the many ways that this nonprofit organization uses native plants and an understanding of natural systems to create innovative solutions, partnerships, and a skilled workforce to support resilient communities. The initiatives include a native plant nursery, Seeds of Change, operated from the Howard County Department of Corrections, that provides inmates and returning citizens opportunities to engage in nursery maintenance activities. And she will be discussing this development over the years. And FOSS members have purchased native plants from Seeds of Change, and that's what we'll be doing this coming fall. Ms. Lilly started Howard EcoWorks in 2016 to be a force for social and environmental change. She has background in watershed planning and restoration, has been actively involved with Ellicott City flood remediation efforts over the years, and in a past life enjoyed traversing the Sligo Creek watershed looking for illicit discharges in coordination with Montgomery County. So with that, I'll hand things over to Lori. Thank you for coming.
Right, thanks. Very nice to be here. And I do miss those days of tromping around in Sligo Creek looking for illicit discharges. It's a pretty fulfilling job that I did. We did both in Sligo Creek and a lot of watersheds in Baltimore City. And it's just like instantly fulfilling to find an illicit discharge and figure out how to get it fixed and pollution problem solved. So a little bit easier than the non-point source pollutions. But anyway, I'm very glad to be here. Sounds good. All right, so here, hopefully you're seeing my presentation. I was just going to give an overview of kind of our programs and services. I'm going to talk about our native plant nursery a little bit and a little bit about biochar, also because it's something I really have fun talking about and thought you guys might be interested. So we're a nonprofit. We're based out of Columbia, Maryland, and our mission is to empower communities and diverse workforces to respect and restore our natural systems for future generations. We work at the nexus of workforce development and environmental restoration and sustainability, and we're building out multiple green jobs programs that target different demographics of people. We're very community centric and are every day out in the community working with churches and homeowner associations and municipalities and whoever would like to work with us to build resilient landscapes. So I'm the founder. I started the organization. We were incorporated in 2016 and we launched in July of 2017. On the daily, we are designing, building, and maintaining different types of projects, environmental restoration projects with our green jobs programs. And our environmental goals are very largely focused on conservation and restoration of soils and plants. In terms of our services, we kind of have three main buckets. Howard County government is our main client. So we do focus a lot in Howard County and surrounding community. Our other grants through Chesapeake Bay Trust and National Fish and Wildlife Foundation bring us into a broader Baltimore region with our grant-based services. And then we have our fee-for-service lines of business, which help to support our operations and our programs. For Howard County government, we receive an annual grant from the county to support our Green Jobs program and provide direct service to the county. Our main responsibilities are around the Safe and Sound Plan, which is County Executive Ball's kind of branded flood mitigation plan for Ellicott City. And under that effort, our teams are responsible for inspecting 56 different points around the county and triggering wind and rain events for debris and then removing that debris. And our other major responsibility to Howard County government is for maintaining their probably 20 different capital stream restoration projects that they have built, and we are the stewards of those projects. The Safe and Sound Plan for Ellicott City encompasses a lot of different components, a lot of which are big flood mitigation efforts. You've probably heard about the tunnel that they've just literally started. It's going to carry a lot of water from one of the sub watersheds into an 18-foot diameter tunnel and go down, I think 80 feet, and then go out under the town a mile to carry excessive stormwater runoff. That's one of the major activities. Our role is more around debris management. And like I said, after the qualifying wind and rain events, we are responsible for responding within 3 business days to do inspections, and then 14 business days to do removals of debris at constriction points and areas prone to flooding around Howard County. And all of that is tracked and publicly accessible through the county's website. So our activities are kind of live recorded for people to keep track of. And then in terms of the stream restoration projects, we try to visit all of their stream restoration projects at least once or twice every year. The ones that they task to us, most of that work revolves around invasive plant management, managing tree plantings and the shelters, removing shelters when the trees have outgrown them, cleaning up trash, and alerting the county if we notice any deficiencies in the projects that they've built. And we do reporting for all of our activities on a monthly, bi-monthly, and annual basis, so that they are aware of what's going on. In terms of our grants, we are grant services. We're targeted in urban and underserved areas of the Baltimore region primarily, which are all these brown areas that you see on this map. And we are still actively looking for projects in the coming fall, particularly for tree planting projects. If you know of or aware of any locations where we could plant trees. But under our different grants, we are targeting these areas to plant trees and native pollinator gardens in the urban and underserved areas. And at the same time, we are hoping to recruit for our workforce programs from these same areas so that we can create kind of a cyclical economy and support the communities even more by bringing people into our programs from these areas. So we are a social enterprise business, and this came about largely because of the pandemic. We did have some fee-for-service work prior to the pandemic, but because of that and the loss of philanthropic sources and grant sources of funding, we needed to branch out into different ways to generate revenue to support ourselves. So we do have a robust design, build, and maintenance service offerings to the community. I saw Kelly on here. She's one of our outsourced designers that helps us to implement these service offerings. But we offer consultations with our landscape designer who can come out to people's sites and help them with recommendations for sustainability actions on their property. We had been offering tree assessments with our arborist, but we are having some staff turnover and looking to have somebody else do those assessments in the near future. We do design build. We do a lot of maintenance work. It's one of our bigger tasks. We have a service called Rent an Eco Crew, where a private residential homeowner or commercial property owner could literally rent a crew of 2 to 5 people to come out and help them on a daily basis to do client-driven work on their property, such as pruning or weeding, maintenance, mulching, whatever client-driven work is of interest, we can have our crew do. And then we're really looking to build out our woodland management services and forest management services. We're very concerned about our forests and the health of our forests and all of the invasive plants and dead and dying material, and looking for ways that we can help promote more care for woodlands and forests in our region. In terms of our programs, Ready is the impetus for starting Howard EcoWorks, in part restoring the environment and developing youth. This program predates Howard EcoWorks back to 2012, when an organization in Howard County called PATH, People Acting Together in Howard, which is an affiliation of faith-based institutions. They advocate to the county for things that are important to them. And in 2012, that was the underemployment of youth and stormwater management, which they advocated to the county to formulate the READY program. And they did, and the county agreed to fund this program for 5 years. And they have since continued to cover it. It used to be administered by the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, but now we have it administered locally through Howard EcoWorks. And it's targeted for young adults age 16 to 25. They work in crews, crew leader and crew members, and they go out in the community and build and maintain different types of environmental projects. They're given leadership training and professional support. Everybody receives a Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professional Associate certificate, so they are knowledgeable in issues related to the Chesapeake Bay and native plants. Uplift is our truer workforce development program where we aim to place the individuals into jobs at the end of their 5 to 6 month term. They also receive the Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professional Associate certificate, but also a bunch of other certifications such as OSHA and erosion sediment control. They receive much more professional development opportunities and are linked to our employer partners throughout their term with the hopes of having them placed into jobs at the end of their time with us. And we're partnered with the Department of Labor currently for the past couple of years to run and administer this program. Eco Ambassadors is a program for high school students, and it's aimed to engage ideally every high school represented in our county. It's funded by the plastic bag fees. So it has a bit of a focus around trash and behavior change. The idea with this program is that the eco ambassadors are empowered with knowledge and training in order to implement pilot projects within their individual communities that could be behavior change related or trash cleanup related. This last year, this program has become much more focused on climate change due to some changes within the county government. So that's a pretty cool development with this program. And we have programming in order to try to be more inclusive with our work. We try to work with people and students in particular with disabilities. We're partnered with the Howard County Public School System as well as Madison, Fields, and Dickerson in Montgomery County. And the students and the individuals make our native plant seed packets and seed bombs. And we sell these retail. They've been very popular. This programming helps to support their workforce development programming and job readiness program for students with disabilities, while also supporting our conservation efforts. And then we utilize a portion of the sales to donate back to the programs that for the students that are making these for us. And lastly, Seeds of Change is our native plant nursery that's been operating out of the Howard County Department of Corrections since 2016. We're looking to build out a jail to jobs pipeline at the detention center. Our native plant nursery is operated on site just outside the fence. The inmates come out and work with us on a bi-weekly basis, and they're volunteering their time to do nursery maintenance tasks, and in exchange, they receive reduced time on their sentences. We sell these plants retail, and the sales go back to support the programming and operation at the nursery. We're only growing native plants at the nursery, and we're primarily growing straight species. We're very concerned about straight native plants, and so that's the focus of what we're growing out there at the detention center. We sell our plants online. We sell them retail at our nursery. We sell them through events and the community bulk orders, which Friends of Sligo Creek has participated with us in the past couple years. It's actually our preferred way to sell these plants because it enables us to sell a lot of plants in one go and doesn't require as much staffing, for example, as it does to keep somebody at the nursery to sell the plants there. So we really prefer this community bulk order option of getting plants out into the community, and are open to having more opportunities for these types of sales. If you know of any churches or homeowner associations or PTAs or schools. Like, we're pretty open to working with any type of community group to get more native plants out into the landscape and sell our plants in this manner. And the deal, as you know, is that the community can place their order in bulk, and they either receive 20% off the whole order of native plants, or we provide free delivery for the plants. As I mentioned, the inmates are coming out a couple times per week to work with us in the nursery. They call it the quote unquote rain garden detail, which is kind of funny that they have somehow associated our nursery, particularly with a rain garden. But I mean, it's kind of in line with what we're doing. They support us with watering, with weeding. Most of what they're doing is potting up of the plants. We purchase them in plugs, and they pot them up into quarts. And then they'll do general nursery maintenance like mowing and mulching and laying down gravel and things like that. Prior to the pandemic, we had launched into delivering educational classes in the jail itself. It has been shown that vocational training can reduce recidivism by up to 24%. Our training that we were delivering is called Landscapes for Life, and it is kind of a pre-prepared curriculum from the Lady Bird Johnson Center in Southwest United States. It's around 15 hours of training that we would deliver over 4 to 5 sessions. And at the completion, the inmates would receive a certificate. We had to do a lot of modifications to this curriculum in order to deliver it in the jail. It was developed in order to have a design and implementation component, and not everybody in the jail is able to go outside. So we kind of tailored it for the group that could only stay in the jail, and then the individuals that were able to leave the jail and go outside, and we would do different types of gardens with them at the correction center grounds. We have only just started to get back into delivering this year after the pandemic. So 4 years later, we've finally we will be able to get back into the classroom and teach the sustainable gardening curriculum this coming summer. And this curriculum is focused around sustainable gardening, water conservation, basics of soil, basics of plants. And it's really interesting to deliver it to this group of people. I do have some quotes about like things that they've learned about soil, about using different types of plant material that they find to be good to the environment, are things that they've learned about. They've enjoyed learning how to pot up and water plants. And one of the things that I've enjoyed about teaching this class in the jail is that it seems like it gives them hope about thinking about, when they get out of jail, and the gardens that they're going to establish at their homes when they get back. Even if it's just in a planter pot or something like that, it's something positive to think about. And the time outside in the nursery, I think, is very beneficial for people's mental health, and that's kind of stated in this paragraph on the bottom, where they look forward to coming out to help every week, feeling less tired, getting some exercise, getting some sun, working with some plants, and talking to other people that are not inmates or correctional officers. These are all things that they've identified as being beneficial from this program. One of the things that we highlight with the corrections department is the cost savings that the jail receives by the return on investment from not having people in jail. And unfortunately, I was preparing this slide and I realized that a bunch of data has disappeared, which is not fun. So I could not find our pre-2022 data. But just to give you a sense of how much labor they have provided to us, and how variable it is between 22 and 23, that labor equates to a number of prisoner days avoided, and that then results in cost savings to the county and the corrections department based on the savings that they receive from not having somebody in the jail. despite all of what I just said about the great things about our Seeds of Change program, we are looking at some changes potentially with our nursery operation. We are looking at acquiring, and we're under contract to purchase 16 acres of land in Glenwood, Maryland, that would enable us to centralize our operations for Howard EcoWorks. So what our presence is going to continue to look like at the Howard County Department of Corrections after 2024 is still up in the air. We are likely to maintain some lighter presence there, maybe with teaching the classes. And we've also done at the nursery, we've done a lot of improvements in the area surrounding our nursery in the woodlands, and we were working on building out a meadow, and we are hopefully going to build a trail there too. So we will likely have some presence there, but in all likelihood, our nursery operation will move to our new property in Glenwood, and we're currently under contract to purchase this property. So it's actually really exciting for us to have our own land and to do a lot of growing and propagation of our own. And we are going to utilize this property for conservation and of native species, and largely in support of wildlife and pollinators and habitat. A lot of it is currently under conservation easement, so that is in our favor already. So that's exciting. And I did want to mention also some work that we're doing around biochar. This is the way, as a nonprofit that's been largely focused on stormwater management. As I told you in the beginning, in 2012, in part, the reason for the READY program forming was around stormwater management, which we know is very important and to the Chesapeake Bay, but we're also very concerned with climate change and thinking about the different ways that we as a company can tackle both of these things. The two main ways that we are working on that are through tree plantings and through biochar related activities. And biochar, if you're not aware, is it is a charcoal. It's made from any type of organic waste through a process called pyrolysis, which means that the organic matter is burned at a very high temperature in a low to no oxygen environment that makes a charcoal that is very porous and has an exceptional ability to soak up stormwater runoff, as well as remove pollutants and sequester carbon in the ground. It is new in its use within stormwater management, but in our kind of world, it's been around for like 2,500 years, where it had been used previously in agricultural settings to help increase the organic matter of the soils to produce higher producing crops. And to give you an idea about what this looks like on a larger scale, we think about all of the biomass, all of the organic biomass that's in the world, and it is sequestering carbon as the organic material is growing, like trees. When that decomposes into the ground, eventually that is released back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. So by intercepting that process and capturing that biomass, we can convert it into renewable gases and oils that can be used for energy, and also solids such as biochar, and therefore emit much less, 50% less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Any type of organic material can be utilized to make biochar, from wood waste to manures like poultry manure on the Eastern Shore, sludge. Pretty much any type of waste product can be converted into this beneficial soil amendment. So it's, from a waste management perspective, it has a lot of opportunity in that regard. It can be mixed with compost, ideally to be used as a soil amendment. As I mentioned, it increases organic matter of the soil. The waste management potential is enormous. Runoff reduction is one of the newer utilizations of biochar, and there's a lot of research going on now across the Chesapeake Bay, notably led by the Center for Watershed Protection right now, and how to scale applications of biochar use to reduce stormwater runoff. I mentioned pollutant removal. Biochar is very good at removing bacteria, heavy metals, and nitrogen from stormwater. It's also awesome for sequestering carbon, and compared to other stormwater best management practices, it's a very cost-effective BMP because it's simply a soil amendment. So it's non-structural. It can fit into many different types of landscapes. Has a lot of potential, for example, in road right-of-ways, which are very linear and have little space to install other types of stormwater management practices. Biochar amendment can be utilized to provide that stormwater treatment where it might not otherwise be possible. And this graphic I like from the University of Delaware because it shows how it is working with soil. So we have soil that is holding volumes of water in between the different particles, and biochar, which because of the way it was produced in those conditions that I mentioned, has a lot of pores inside of it. And so it's additive to the soil particles. And when they are mixed with the soil, you have much more opportunity for water retention and water storage in the soil by adding biochar. And we did some research in the Ellicott City watershed where I've done a lot of work regarding different ways to reduce runoff. And our focus was more on the pervious surfaces, the turf grass, and trying to complement what the county was doing in terms of managing impervious surfaces with large flood mitigation projects. So in our more community-based efforts, we targeted the pervious areas and wanted to know how much potential there was to utilize biochar soil amendment to reduce runoff from those turf areas. And we partnered with the University of Delaware and did a couple control plots in the watershed to see how well that would work. And the results were a little bit variable and also kind of exciting, as you can see that the biochar amended soils nearly increased the infiltration rate or infiltration capacity by almost 100% more, which is very cool. This picture on the top right is a picture of a kiln. There are different ways of making biochar at scale. It can be made in like an incinerator type system. On a small scale, we can utilize this kind of system. This is what I utilize on my own property to manage organic waste, in particular invasive species, and convert that waste into biochar. And the bottom graphic shows you a little bit about how that works with this kind of system. We start the fire on the top instead of on the bottom, and that in part and because it's closed off at the bottom, that is what creates that limited oxygen environment in order to create the coals. So we've been experimenting with creating biochars from different types of invasive species that could enhance our woodland management activities that I mentioned before. And we are doing some additional testing with the University of Delaware in the field, where we're looking at our kiln produced biochars from invasive species and seeing how well they infiltrate compared to more commercial products. And it's seeming like our kiln-produced biochars from invasive species are performing pretty well in the soil, which is exciting. We're interested in utilizing and incorporating this model into our overall work activity and restoration as another restoration option for communities. So I know that was kind of a lot of different things. Happy to take some questions now if anybody has anything. Does anybody have any questions about any of all of that stuff?
I have a question. I don't know how to raise my hand with the icon. I'm Stella Turner. I'm with Capital Nature, and I found out about this program because we actually list Sligo, Friends of Sligo's work in our regional calendar. And this just looked really, really fascinating to me. And I do have a question for you. I think usually the kind of the project of planting trees and stewarding trees is thought of differently from, let's say, pollinator gardens. And I think it's going to be more and more important to look at those as kind of the same project where you look at the ecology around the tree, even the street trees, and really try to create kind of, these microenvironments that make room not only for the trees, but for the native plants that are appropriate for the site and pollinators and bees. So I'm curious, how do you approach that? And have you actually done that kind of work already?
We've done a little bit of work around that through the creation of guilds. Have you heard of those?
No.
Okay. Like a guild is it's kind of exactly what you're describing in terms of a tree planting with a native plant garden around it. And it's a permaculture based practice. And it typically will also include a nitrogen fixing component like lupins or baptisia. But the idea with a guild is kind of a micro ecosystem with in a small space, you would have vertical structure with a tree, shrub, ideally a nitrogen fixer, and then the ground level component. And they can be like, I mean, they could be as big as you like, I guess, but we were building them on smaller scale, like 200 to 300 square feet, to create that kind of micro ecosystem that you're talking about. And there's a lot of information about guilds that you can find, and I think they're a wonderful holistic practice that is not very expensive to implement. And yeah, I'd highly recommend looking more into those if you're interested.
Thanks so much. If somebody could put maybe some links in chat, if someone has it at their fingertips, that would be great.
I'll see if I can find something here while I'm listening for any other.
Does anyone have any questions? Please raise your hand or just unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Mark.
Elaine, this is
Oh,
Ross. Yeah, thanks, Lori. That was a full menu of topics, and so there are lots of possible questions. My question goes back to the very beginning of your talk where you mentioned the stream restoration work.
Uh-huh.
And I just wondered if you could give us any sense of your observations about success rates of restoration and what sorts of things seem to work well and other things that maybe don't work so well, and what kinds of aftercare is really necessary in order
Mhm.
for restoration projects to be successful.
Mm. Well, so we're coming at it from the entirely maintenance side of things, and we kind of just get projects from Howard County government whenever they decide to give them to us, which could be that we're getting projects that were just built, or like last year they gave us projects that were seemed to be 15 years old that never had any maintenance. And from that simple perspective, I think having maintenance as soon as possible after the project is built is obviously easier and more cost effective than trying to go back into a project that hasn't had any maintenance for so many years, and trying to plus the original projects that were built, their intentions for how they were designed and installed is not always clear. And like our teams are the amount of maintenance that like I think what we have is probably 100 acres of stream restoration project that our small crews of 5 people typically are tasked with going out to maintain. It's just it is not it is not nearly sufficient in order to maintain all these different sites the way that they should be, with the extent of invasive plant invasion of old species and new species coming in. And it is, for us, it's a pretty overwhelming task. We ourselves have been looking into some lighter stream restoration projects that we can implement. This past season, we did some beaver dam analogs, which are a type of structure that can be implemented by hand without a permit in a headwater stream, a non-perennially flowing stream, a zero order stream. We implement some of these projects in
So I agree with Ross and Lori. We don't want stream restoration that has channel design. But things like restoring beaver dams and living shorelines and so forth. What I wanted to contribute is one of the big secrets that I used when I was Army National Guard. When you do plant and you don't want stormwater runoff, make sure that a lot of the native plants have deep root systems. It's that simple. Deep root systems, and the plant holds the water and releases it slowly and doesn't contribute to stormwater. So all of you, as a management thing, when you restore, make sure that there are a bunch of native plants with deep root systems. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm sorry I got cut off there with something going on in the background. I agree. Yep, native plants. And Ross, I don't know if I fully answered your question, but
Yeah, thanks very much. I mean, we some of us on the call here are weed warriors who have lots of places where we can work, obviously. And one of the target areas that we try to select are places that have had recent stream restoration work.
it's awesome. Yeah.
And we see it as valuable, and we wish that the county were able to provide more of its own support for that kind of thing, because there's only so much that the volunteers can do.
Yeah, I agree.
If I can jump in with one other question, going to the end of your talk on the biochar, and again linking it to weed warriors who do remove or take out, at least in cutting down and pulling and so on, a lot of material, but we typically leave it in the woods. The only exception to that I can think of really is garlic mustard, which we will often pull out if it has seeds. But I'm wondering what the logistics would be of actually removing material. I mean, there's a fuel cost and a human labor cost to doing that, and it also removes organic material from the woods themselves. But how do you balance those inputs and outputs in deciding whether it makes sense to try to convert some of that material into biochar?
Ideally, the kiln would be brought to the site where you're removing the invasive plants, and you would, well, first you would collect the invasive material and you would stockpile it until it is dry. And then you could bring the kiln in and burn the material to biochar and reapply the biochar back to the forest floor to increase the organic matter of the soil. And it's kind of mimicking kind of a fire regime that we have suppressed in our region over the years. Like our systems, our natural systems should have some amount of fire in them in order to keep them healthy. And in my mind, utilizing the productive biochar mimics that in some way, at a different kind, in a different way than you would with a prescribed fire, but it's still around converting that waste into something beneficial for the forest.
Taking out garlic mustard because that's the well-known thing, because otherwise the seeds continue. But wineberry is another one that makes a lot of sense to remove because it makes the wood so unpleasant.
Mhm.
So I always bag the wineberry.
So Lori, I have a question about your plants. So how do you decide what species you're going to pot up and have for sale?
I think we're doing, and this would be the nursery manager's job to determine, and not my job, but they would be looking at a combination of what customers are looking for. And this year we added some new ones that we're kind of testing to see, like yarrow is a new one that we added this year that we hadn't had in the past. Wanting to just try to test it out and see if people will want to buy it. But it's basically based on demand, and we try to utilize a lot of ground covers, and so we do a lot of golden ragwort and iris and green and gold, and those ones that we know are vigorous spreaders that a lot of people will be looking for to improve their landscapes.
Christine?
Oh, I just wanted to say, Lori, and your colleagues are doing an incredible amount of different things, and have been really successful with getting grants and all. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to say how much work I think goes into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be really tough, and will we get the grant or not? And
Yeah.
yeah, that's really tough to manage and live that way. So
Yeah.
I
Thank
wanted to
you.
recognize your
Oh, thank you.
persistence and very innovative things I think you're doing. I
Yeah.
think it's great. And I think about Sligo, dear old Sligo, really, I mean, from my perspective, I'm a webmaster and I do some volunteering, but I'm not a weed warrior who gets out there and sees things every day. But my impression is that there's so much work being done. So correct me, any of the weed warriors in the room, if I've got it wrong. But we have an incredible number of weed warriors putting in a huge number of hours. This Sligo watershed came in #1 among all watersheds in Montgomery County for weed warrior volunteer hours. So, we really got a great number of people working, but then there's so many invasives. So, we remove stuff, and then we're not, as I understand it, typically empowered to plant,
Mhm.
so we could spread seed that's been approved or whatever.
Mhm.
And I wonder if there's a way or some experiences or papers that you've written, or maybe it's something that everybody in the field knows about and I'm clueless, but to get funding to try to replace some of these things, or to have like a demonstration site, or
Mhm.
the opposite of a trash hotspot, or a invasive hotspot, but a actual like SWAT sort of attention to a particular area. I think they do this in DC. I forget what they call them, but they're like special attention sites, and they're dotted
Mhm.
all around.
Mhm.
And I wonder if that's something that you think gets funded, or has gotten funded. And I don't know, I'm just throwing that idea out there because it seems like only to come back, the following year or two or whatever, and pull those same porcelain berry, which has now spread, ever further. I mean, I live in a section of Sligo which it's just overrun with ivy all over.
Mhm.
It's just, I mean, everywhere is overrun with ivy, but this is particularly
Oh,
profound, I
man.
think. And so
Yeah. I wish I had a magic answer for you. Yeah. I
you
think,
guys, hire yourselves out, or I don't know, do you,
I mean, we do, and we kind of have the opposite problem in that we're not allowed to. Look, we would love to utilize volunteers in our work on public lands, managing invasive plants, and we're not allowed to, even though we have a direct contract with our county government and we have our own insurance and liability. And I've argued with them many, many times about like my people are all first aids trained. Like we should be able to lead volunteers and do that much more work on public lands. And we have not been able to get over that hurdle with the county's legal people. So I don't know. I wish we could find better ways to manage our natural resources. It's disheartening. Yeah.
So, this is Ross again. To piggyback on Christine's comments and question, and she's right. We do, as weed warriors, we spend a lot more time pulling and killing than planting. We do some planting with the Parks Department. It's typically meadow related, so in open areas, as opposed to in the woods.
Mhm.
And ironically, it's in the woods that we do most of our weed
Right.
work.
Right.
And so there's limited replacement that
Right.
we have any role in. We do see things like spice bush
Mhm.
becoming more common in areas where we've done some work.
Yeah, the deer don't
But
like them.
I would say that in the areas where we have done meadow planting, it's a pretty mixed success rate. You plant hundreds and hundreds or thousands of plugs
Mhm.
and of many different species.
Mhm.
And I don't have hard data, but my observation is that the success is less than you would like.
Right.
And so it's another one of those lessons that you have to learn about which species do well
Mhm.
and in what locations.
Mhm.
So it does get frustrating.
Yeah.
So I'd like to offer something wonderful that just come up, magic like. How many of you have been removing perilla mint beefsteak plant? Everybody?
Removing which one?
Beefsteak plant, perilla mint?
Beefsteak plant? Yes. Mhm.
Yes. Now, guess what? They just found a biocontrol. It's a local plant. So, and it doesn't hurt natives. And Matt Tankos with the APHIS is working with the National Park Service, and they're working it. It's moderately successful. And they're releasing it in a national park, and they're ready to do more. So the contact is Matt Tankos, Tancos, and he'll give you updated information.
Mhm.
That's pretty exciting.
Cool.
Great. So one more question. So your client-driven work with the Eco Crew. So what is their service area?
Around 25 miles from Columbia.
Okay.
We can work farther. There's just an extra charge to go increase the radius.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, does anyone else have any questions? If not, then thank you all for coming. Don't forget about the different Stewardship Day on Saturday and Weed Warrior work Sunday, and macroinvertebrate testing is Sunday afternoon. So thank you very much, Lori. This was wonderful.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thank you very much.